live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Sadiq Khan. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Residents in the US state of Florida are ordered to evacuate with Hurricane Idalia due to make landfall today. US vows to back Ukraine in its war with Russia as it announces a new $250 million military aid. Russia foils drone attack done by Ukraine. After landing the moon, ISRO now has its sights on the sun, with agency preparing for launch on Saturday. Chandrayaan-3 rover confirms the presence of sulphur and oxygen on the moon's south pole. Cricket Asia Cup 2023 is set to kick off today with a clash between Pakistan and Nepal. Residents in Florida are preparing for the worst with Hurricane Idalia due to make landfall today. Nearly three-quarters of the state's counties are under a state of emergency, with its governor urging people to heed warnings. DD India correspondent Kate Fisher reports from Washington, D.C.
Millions of Americans are being warned to prepare for major flooding and high winds as Hurricane Idalia barrels towards Florida's west coast. Forecasters are predicting storm surges of more than 3.5 meters. Here in Washington, the White House says that President Biden is being briefed on developments by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. The agency's director has said that the storm, and I quote, will be deadly if people don't get out of harm's way and take it seriously. She urged people living in the path of potential storm surge to evacuate, but emphasized that they didn't need to travel too far to get out of its way. To help the evacuation process, Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis said that highway tolls were being waived, shelters were opening, and that hotels were prepared to take evacuees. He also said that 5,000 National Guardsmen and 580 search and rescue workers were mobilized, more than 1,000 generators were prepped for deployment, and 200 ambulances were ready to sweep into the affected area when feasible. He added that contingencies were in place for after the storm passed through, including more than 30,000 utility workers to repair outages and a reserve of 400,000 gallons of fuel. Now, Idalia is expected to make landfall on the Gulf Coast on Wednesday morning local time in one of the most rural and poorest areas of the state, an area that hasn't experienced a major hurricane since the 1800s. Although much of Florida, including the densely populated Tampa area, is forecast to be affected by severe weather. Kate Fisher in Washington reporting for DD India.
And good news, India's lunar mission Chandrayaan-3 has confirmed the presence of sulphur on the moon's surface. The Pragyan rover has also detected signs of aluminium, oxygen, calcium and iron, and the hunt for hydrogen is underway. India's space agency said yesterday that the rover had been rerouted safely after encountering a 4-meter crater on the lunar surface. India's historic lunar mission has garnered worldwide interest, but it turns out Chandrayaan-3's success has been a global effort too. A remote part of southwest England has provided some cutting-edge technology that's playing a very important role. Our reporter John Beaver got a rare behind-the-scenes look at the satellite Earth station, helping to keep mission control under control.
7,000 kilometers from India is an array of equipment communicating with objects much further away. The Goonhilly Satellite Earth Station spent a large part of its early life dedicated to broadcasting TV signals. In 1969, it helped transmit pictures of the moon landing to enthralled viewers. 44 years later, it's playing its own part in the next chapter of lunar exploration as one of the sites keeping engineers on Earth in touch with the historic Indian mission.
During the landing phase of Chandrayaan-3, we were preparing to take over for the next phase on the surface. So we had both the excitement of seeing the landing happen, but on the other hand, it's calmly going through all of the processes that we need to do to make sure that we don't do anything wrong and everything's going to go according to plan.
Goonhilly is part of a space industry that employs almost 50,000 people in the UK. The country is second only to the United States in terms of the number of satellites it produces, and the site here helps engineers keep in touch with many of them. The largest antenna here is 32 metres in diameter. It needs to be that big to send and receive signals to deep space. As well as the Indian Lunar mission, they're also using this antenna to talk to the European Space Agency's Mars Express mission, 225 million kilometres away. The technology here is compatible with space agencies around the world. It's an industry dominated by big players, but as the only private company in the world offering these communication services, the team here are excited about the possibilities being opened up by India's celestial achievements.
So if space missions do cost billions and tens of billions, that's going to restrict and limit the reality of what you can do in space. So we need that paradigm shift. We need what India is doing, and we need what Goonhilly is doing in order for us to continue to expand that exploration. So it's a really important model shift here that needs to happen.
As the price of getting to space comes down, those involved will keep looking up to the stars and think this could be the beginning of a new chapter in space exploration. John Beaver at the Goonhilly Satellite Earth Station, reporting for DD India.
And after a successful lunar landing, ISRO now has its sights on the sun. The space agency shared images of the launch vehicle carrying spacecraft Aditya L1 to the second launch pad. The solar launch is now preparing for takeoff on Saturday just before midday IST. ISRO says the launch will be the first Indian mission to study the sun. Well, for more on this, DD India's Aisha Khanum joins us from Bengaluru. Aisha, welcome to the show. Now tell us about this mission to the sun and how significant it is.
Well, all eyes are on Sriharikota now, India's spaceport, which launched Chandrayaan-3 last weekend, and this weekend it will be Aditya L1 mission from the spaceport at Sriharikota, and now PSLV rocket is all set for the countdown for the launch, and this is an important mission for India because India now, still enjoying the glory of the success of Chandrayaan-3 will once again prove India's space might and India's capabilities of an end-to-end technology to reach closer to the sun. And this mission will explore important areas of the sun, especially the solar flares, the solar wind, and also the variation of temperature in the space, and how the activities within the sun's surface, the corona, affects the electromagnetic field. The scientists tell us that the electromagnetic field on Earth changes once in 11 years due to the variation in solar activity within the sun, and this is an important study that this mission will conduct to understand why this happens and how this can be adjusted with the help of technology. So all this important data will be collected by Aditya L1, and this will be important in terms of research in scientific activities in medical field. Remember, we talk about radiations, we talk about X-rays. The sun's rays reach only a part of sun's ray reach the Earth because of the ozone and the atmosphere that we are covered with. But this Aditya L1 mission will go closer to the sun at the L1 point, and from here it will study how these radiations and how the solar heat affects the entire universe. So this study will also be handy for India to conduct further studies with regard to the mystery of the sun's activities in its sphere.
All right, so Aisha, it's technically not going to the sun. It's going to a place where it can continuously view the sun without any eclipse. So how big is it, considering this is ISRO's first solar mission?
Well, absolutely. This is ISRO's first solar mission, and this will be placed at a very closer range to the sun, from where this will have a constant watch on the activities of the sun without being affected by any eclipse or any other partial eclipse that happen between the sun and the earth. And this is L1 is a Lagrange point, which is a conventional, which is a very convenient parking point for this satellite to study the activities of the sun. So for ISRO, this is important because the scientists in ISRO will be able to demonstrate to the world once again how India's space technology is being used, with regard to the scientific experiments, and ultimately these experiments, this data is being gathered, to integrate it in the national development and bring it further to the betterment of mankind. And now remember, when this L1 satellite, Aditya L1, studies about the temperature activities in the space, because there are a lot of assets in the space which are affected by the sun's temperature. So we might be able to, discuss about the temperature on Jupiter, the temperature on Mars, Venus, Earth, and people might be connecting each other in different planets. Now, imagine me and you sitting, on Earth and talking to people on Venus and on Moon about the temperature, discussing the weather. Now, this is not a joke. This is a possibility which the scientists dream about, and they say that the interplanetary mission is a dream of the scientists across the world, and this dream might come true. And by then, all this data that will be collected by Aditya L1 mission will be handy, in our exploration to the huge, mighty universe, which has several mysteries around us. So for ISRO, this is an important mission, and this will last for about 4 to 5 years, and that means it will have huge data which can be collected, and it will also be shared with the international scientific community, where there will be further studies on the mysteries of sun and its continuous activities within its surface.
All right, thank you so much, Aisha, for your valuable inputs. Now, the festival of Raksha Bandhan was celebrated at Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi. President Draupadi Murmu got Rakhis tied on her wrist by school children. Well, Raksha Bandhan was also celebrated in PM House, where school children tied Rakhis to Prime Minister Modi's hands. And a Pakistani court has suspended former Prime Minister Imran Khan's recent conviction on corruption charges. However, this will not lead to his release, as a judge has ordered his detention in another case. Let's take a look.
A Pakistani court has suspended former Prime Minister Imran Khan's recent conviction on corruption charges. But the decision will not lead to his release, as a judge has ordered his detention in another case on charges of leaking state secrets. His lawyer, Naeem Panjutta, announced the news on social media on Tuesday, saying the sentence has been suspended. 70-year-old former cricket hero Khan has been at the center of political turmoil since his ouster in a parliamentary vote of confidence in April 2022. His relations with Pakistan's powerful generals have deteriorated ever since. Khan was imprisoned on August 5th. He'd been sentenced to 3 years in jail for unlawfully selling state gifts during his tenure as Prime Minister from 2018 to 2022. His legal team had lodged an appeal on the grounds that he was convicted without being given the right to defend himself. As a result of the conviction, and with a national election expected soon, Pakistan's Election Commission has also barred Khan from contesting elections for 5 years. The remaining charge against Khan alleges he made public the contents of a confidential cable sent by Pakistan's ambassador to the United States and used it for political gain. Khan says the cable proves his removal was at the behest of the United States, which he said pressed Pakistan's military to topple his government because he had visited Russia shortly before its attack on Ukraine. Both the United States and the Pakistani military deny this.
Still to come on this edition of DD India Live, London Mayor Sadiq Khan says clean air is a right, not a privilege, as the city's ultra-low emission zone expanded. US vows to back Ukraine in its war with Russia as it announces further $250 million military assistance for the country. The Cricket Asia Cup 2023 is about to kick off with a clash between Pakistan and Nepal.
Namaste India.
Namaste land.
Marhaban ila al-Hind.
Zari India.
Salam India.
Namaste India.
Namaskar Bharata.
Mui
Nous
India.
sommes land.
Nahnu hunud.
India.
माँ हिंदी हस्ती
Mung Hindian.
सलाम हिंदुस्तान
We are India.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj, and US Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo is wrapping up a 4-day visit to China, with the trip widely thought to be an opportunity to mend ties between the two countries. The White House is hoping to address Beijing's reluctance to engage in meaningful initiatives and American business concerns of investing in China. DD India correspondent Andrew Wood reports from Hong Kong.
Gina Raimondo is the fourth senior American politician to visit China in the past couple of months, including people like the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, and the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen. And she was actually invited by the Chinese rather than suggesting that it might be a good idea as she visited. So, there is this attempt to try to improve relations, but there's still, there's such a lack of understanding over things like restrictions on technology exports from America to China, and that they still will probably be at loggerheads over that. And the Commerce Department, which Ms. Raimondo heads, is in charge of implementing those restrictions. Still, it's probably better for them to be talking than not talking at the moment. It's the last day of the trip. Last night, Ms. Raimondo went from Beijing to Shanghai on a high-speed train, and she'll be leaving later today. Well, so far at the beginning, China was quite friendly. Then I think things got a little bit tighter, as it were, more focused perhaps yesterday after Ms. Raimondo met the Premier of China, and he said that it was good for America and China to have better relations. I haven't seen any reaction yet to Ms. Raimondo's statement that American companies were finding China uninvestable, but I'm sure the Chinese will want to say something about that.
European Union defence ministers have gathered for informal talks in Toledo in Spain. DD India's Alex Cadia is in Brussels and sent this report.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine is once again top of the agenda for European defence ministers, as it has been at every meeting since February of last year. They're meeting in an old weapons factory in Toledo, Spain, a fitting place to discuss the kind of support Kyiv will need in the coming months. In the last week alone, the plan to deliver F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine started to take shape. The country's defence minister says they could be operational as soon as spring 2024. The plan is being spearheaded by the Netherlands and Denmark, who are leading a coalition of countries who will train Ukrainian pilots over the next 6 months. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he expects to receive around 40 aircraft, which the Dutch and Danish air forces have recently retired. The EU ministers will also discuss the situation in Niger. Just over a month after the country's military toppled the democratically elected president, the EU is still concerned about what the coup could mean for stability in the region. Ministers will want to address what the situation means for the migration deal the EU had struck with Niger and how vital uranium imports could be affected. Finally, the EU's defence representatives will meet with their counterparts from the United Nations and NATO in a bid to further strengthen their cooperation on regional and global security issues. Above all, though, this meeting's primary focus will be on Europe's support for Ukraine in the face of Russia's attempted invasion. That means monitoring the current counter-offensive on the ground, but also planning what weapons, training and equipment Kyiv will need in the months and years to come. Alex Cadier in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
And the United States has vowed to back Ukraine in its war with Russia as it announced a further $250 million military assistance package for the country. The Pentagon says the new package includes additional air defense and artillery munitions, mine-clearing equipment and medical vehicles. The new package also includes over 3 million rounds of small arms ammunition. Over $43 billion in US military aid has been provided to Ukraine since it began its war with Russia. President Joe Biden earlier this month asked Congress to approve an additional $24 billion in assistance.
The Biden-Harris administration is announcing a new package of security assistance for Ukraine to meet Ukraine's critical security and defense needs. It includes additional mine-clearing equipment, missiles for air defense, ammunition for artillery and HIMARS systems, and over 3 million rounds of small arms ammunition. This package will help Ukrainian forces on the battlefield and support its air defenses. The United States and our allies and partners will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes.
India and New Zealand have signed a memorandum of understanding to boost economic ties between two countries. The MOU was signed in the presence of India's Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia and Damien O'Connor, Minister for Trade, Export and Agriculture of New Zealand. Key priorities included boosting air travel links between the two countries, strengthening the agriculture and horticulture sectors, and focusing on boosting education. India's Civil Aviation Minister says travel between the nations is about to get easier.
We signed an MOU that has opened up the possibilities of furthering of air transport between our two countries. The open sky policy has been put in place. Points of call from India have also been increased to 6 between both countries, covering major metros, Bombay, Delhi, Bengaluru, Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata.
Let's take a look at some more stories around the world. Heavy rain leaves a trail of destruction in various parts of Bolivia. Mudslides due to relentless rain claim 3 lives and leave several trapped. Search efforts continue to rescue the survivors. Part of Times Square station in New York turned into a waterfall after a century-old water main broke in the station and sent water pouring through the ceiling. And London Mayor Sadiq Khan says clean air is a right, not a privilege, as the city's ultra-low emission zone is expanded this week. The scheme has sparked small protests, with opponents saying it's been introduced too quickly and disproportionately affects poorer residents. DD India correspondent Julia Chapman reports.
All 32 London boroughs now fall under the ultra-low emission zone, meaning drivers of older, more polluting cars need to pay a charge in order to enter that area. This is a scheme that was first introduced in central London in 2019 in order to bring down pollution levels in the British capital. Since then, it has expanded twice. It now encompasses the entire area of Greater London, but it's not been without its controversy. There are many very vocal opponents to ULEZ, many of whom say that it is simply too quick to be bringing out this expansion of the ULEZ zone. Many as well objecting to the cost, saying this is a time where there are huge cost of living pressures on London residents, and this is simply an inappropriate time to put this additional burden on them. But the London mayor says that 9 out of 10 cars are already ULEZ compliant in the capital, so it will be a relatively low number of people affected. And there are also incentives for those with more polluting non-compliant cars to scrap those vehicles and buy new ones. Each of them are eligible for around £2,000 or $2,500 in order to do that. Now, some say that's simply not going to be enough for a brand new car, but that is the incentive that is being offered in order to get pollution levels down, which the London Mayor Sadiq Khan says is necessary because there are some 4,000 premature deaths in the capital every year that are directly linked to air pollution. Julia Chapman in London, reporting for DD India.
India's High Commission in Colombo has marked the 50th anniversary of the association between the National Defence College of India and the Sri Lankan Armed Forces. The event marked the ongoing cooperation and friendship between the two countries' militaries. During the event, High Commissioner of India Gopal Bagle felicitated Admiral D.B. Gunasekara, the first NDC India alumnus in Sri Lanka. The occasion emphasized the shared cultural ties and training opportunities and showcased the collaborative foundation between the nations. The Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, Dubai, organized an event on the impact of UAE's new corporate tax. Participants were provided with valuable insights into the complexity of the new tax system. It offered stakeholders valuable insights into navigating the intricate landscape of UAE's new corporate tax-free zones. ICAI's role in shaping business dynamics, influencing investments and driving economic growth was also highlighted. Let's have some sports news now, where the Cricket Asia Cup 2023 is set to kick off today with a clash between Pakistan and Nepal. The tournament will be co-hosted by Pakistan and Sri Lanka. The Asia Cup 2023 sees Pakistan and Nepal placed in Group A alongside India. It's a high-stakes scenario with one team's journey ending after the initial round. That's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram as well. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bhardwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.